How's it going, everybody? It is your boy Zimzilla back at it with another stream. So, it's been actually some time since I did the last stream, or I actually did a regular video for that matter. But now that I am back from G-Fest, of course, it's been some time since I've been back from G-Fest. I have been just doing a lot of scripting, specifically tweaking and finishing up the last few edits for the Sodogara Kaiju review, which is the next video that will be coming, along with another Godzilla commentary video, sort of long form analysis, probably not that long form. And then I will be revisiting the Odo Island audio drama. That is another big thing I have in the works, along with the fact that it is this week where Gigabash comes out. So what I hopefully plan to do is, once I buy it, do a little bit of streaming and enjoy myself in that department. Because I think that obviously I had done and shown off the demo, but that was on PC. I plan to get it for my PS5, so the quality of the streams will probably be better in terms of the gameplay stability. However, the audio will probably not be as good since I will be streaming from my PlayStation, which is also in a different room of my humble abode. But in the meantime, was good. Yes, it is the Brandon. But real quickly, I'm gonna mute myself because I'm gonna go grab something to show off. I know I look absolutely terrible, but I know obviously for Brandon, I ended up buying him a Bandai Salunga, which he will be enjoying once I ship that off either this week or the next week. And we'll not try to delay it any further than that. But so for the people who don't really see my face too often, hello. But overall, if people are curious to know my thoughts about G-Fest, G-Fest was a very fun time. I enjoyed myself tremendously, and it was just a great time for me to reconnect with people I hadn't seen in over 3 years, and just sort of, I guess I don't say reconnecting with the hobby would be the right word, but just sort of remember why I enjoy the community as much as I do, and that's the friends you make along the way, which is a good personal reason, not a good writing choice, but you know, that's neither here nor there. Salunga, or as a certain professor of the kaiju craft would say, a salamunga, a wonderful, or spamamunga, amogus. Yes, good, very good. But if people are wondering, will this debate discussion thing have to do with 98? Yes, it will. You know this channel well enough that 98 has become the 98 or the Fredling destroying channel. So I miss you too, baby. Mwah. There's your kisses. And actually, Brendan, for your sake, I bought the Fredling book at the G Festal. It was good. I got that for so little monies, and I am happy with what I am finding in terms of inconsistencies and reviewing things I did not realize or know, because the film doesn't make those things abundantly clear. But speaking of that book in general, unlike, for example, the 2014 novelization, where it feels a little bit more structured like a thriller in terms of scenes being essentially their own chapters, this book has 7 chapters, only 7 chapters. and it's the 7 chapters essentially make up the entire movie, and then there's an epilogue. But like chapters are a pretty like the chapters are hefty things. So I'm just gonna scroll through it, and I'll put my camera back on so you can see me go through this. So it also comes with a prologue too, and even the prologue's not that long, but the overall, like the epilogue and prologue are pretty small, but then these chapters, like for the size of the book, are relatively huge, and they go over an extensive portion of like the plot. So right here out of this book, that is one chapter, and then there's only 7 of them. So what happens is that the first chapter goes all the way from the nuclear testing that you see in the beginning of the film all the way to when they travel to Jamaica and they find the ship there, which actually I know some people have said that, and I've even been victim of this as well, thinking that the ship is the same Japanese ship that was in Japan, that ship that they sunk. It actually was not the same ship. These are 2 different ships, although what's interesting is that the Korean that you see on the tuna cans in the movie would make you think it's like a Korean ship, but it's actually apparently a Liberian ship. So, excuse me, 2 different ships. One ship was in Liberian ship that was over on the coast of Jamaica that ends up getting attacked and then washes ashore onto the boats. And then I know a lot of people have also said that if Godzilla, or Zilla more accurately, if he had dragged the ship ashore, the novel does not really make mention of whether or not he had actually like pulled it. It's just that they make it clear that that the ship was attacked, but no real evidence that it was dragged there, which is interesting. The Fred book, the holy text. Is that the Bible? No, it's actually I guess it's the Satanic Bible. That'd be an accurate way, or the Necronomicon. Inconsistencies more like brain concepts on fuel mind can't comprehend. As Fred says, size does matter. Size does matter. Anyone who says otherwise is a liar. And oh boy, I'm actually not drinking on stream tonight, or at least I'm not drinking alcohol. I got my wonderful Blue Voltage. And it will be respected to 9. 9, sir, 9. But in terms of the people who we were expecting to see on stream, I'm expecting G98 Defender to be on here because he said I have to stream at 9:30. That means I'll get off work at 9. So you're late, sir. You are late. And then Atomic Spawn said he would come on at around 10ish. So there's gonna be at least 2 people joining. However, if Defender doesn't come on now, it is what it is. We can answer questions until he does, and if he doesn't, I am just gonna have to make an entirely new thumbnail for the video, and it is what it is. Hey, Matt, how's it going? I'm doing absolutely fantastic. It's been good. Stream. Happy to be streaming again. Happy to be making content again, and still suffering from that amazing postpartum G-Fest depression. However, to lighten up my spirits, they already said when the next date for G-Fest next year is going to be. So that's nice. Something to look forward to. If you could ask Roland Emmerich one question, what would it be? Oh goodness. Oh God. Oh, that's so hard because that's oh goodness. There's so many questions I would love to ask him. I guess the interestingly enough, probably the one question I would ask is this. It's probably technically a dual question. It'd be, does he consider the Godzilla from the Godzilla the series and Zilla from Final Wars to be his Godzilla? Because the reason I say that is because when Dean Devlin and Emmerich were overseeing the production of Godzilla the series, it's been reported that they were unhappy with the fact that Godzilla had an atomic breath in the series because their Godzilla didn't do that. So I'd be curious for him if he like kind of disowned it because it wasn't something he really directly worked on. It was just something that he was like a supervisor for, and also since Patrick Tatopoulos considers Zilla to be his character, the same character, if he considers Zilla to be his monster, just like the actual designer of the creature is. That'd probably be the one question I'd ask him. And yes, you are correct, Matt. The series was the improvement to the 1998 movie. I mean, like the ultimate improvement would have been just sticking to the John DeMont script and tweaking a few things, and then we would be happy as can be. But sometimes we can't always get the things. And yes, you are correct. He was indeed happy with Zilla in Final Wars. I mean, hey, then I guess I make it look easy then, considering that I am still working on the essentially unofficial rewrite of 98 with its own original monster. Which, another interesting thing to note. Fun fact, you could tell this to your mom. The 3 fishing trawlers that you see in Godzilla 98, they are actually not New York. They are not on the coast of New York. They are actually off the coast of New England when they are sunk, which means they were closer to me than they would have been closer to Manhattan. So then, like, this changes it because not only is 98 mutated in French Polynesia, swims up to Japanese waters to attack that fishing ship, then travels back down to the Panama Canal, goes through Panama, attacks a Liberian ship, and it washes ashore Jamaica, then goes up past Florida, all the way up to New England to over right where those trawlers are, and then goes back down to New York. And I think it's interesting, especially because, of course, Manhattan and Boston are not like exactly the same, but I have not gotten to the point in the book where Nick gives the explanation to why he went to New York and if it's going to be the same as it is in the movie. But it is interesting to note that just the travel is extremely strange because it's not like a straight shot to New York for nesting. It's essentially just grabbing food at different spots all around the world rather than like fishing in a specific area and then nesting in a similar area. But again, the travel is now French Polynesia, Japanese waters, down to Panama, to Jamaica, up past Florida, all the way to like New England waters, back down to New York. It's almost like Zilla can have a particular pattern for his attacks besides the fish. Essentially, yeah, but like when it comes to the film's realism, where it's like it's not like he's depopulating areas of fish where he's hunting. So if the areas that he needs to collect these large swaths of fish, just the travel seems like it's expending more energy than would actually make sense for a creature that's about to lay eggs. And then just the completely different places, or even the fact that like he attacks one Japanese ship, then a Liberian ship in the Atlantic, and the Japanese ship in the Pacific, instead of just attacking ships in one area. But it's definitely it's interesting. And another fun fact you can tell to your mom: Hicks's name is different in the book versus the series, because in the series you find out his first name is Anthony and it's Alexander in the book. So it's just those small little details that just build up, and it kind of shows like where certain ideas were in terms of when the film was made versus then finally we got the movie and then the TV show itself. But any other questions people have got to throw at me while we wait for our guest? I will just love to kind of keep the air going as we wait, because if Defender doesn't come but Spawn does, it's gonna probably be about like a couple more minutes, maybe an hour. It will depend. And if so, I will if people are interested, we can just I can bring people onto the stream as well. Did you keep the Fred Dusty? No, I did not keep the Fred Dusty because my creature doesn't lay eggs at all. It is a just basic male in the most general sense. Here's a question: what's your favorite Godzilla design across all media? Officially, Godzilla Ultima. If we're talking about any design in general, it's still probably gonna be Ultima, with a close second being the John DeMont, Stan Winston Godzilla design. I think that the DeMont Godzilla is the best American Godzilla design we've seen, and then Ultima, in terms of just new looks that are in keeping with the original, I think that Ultima does a good job. But that was the best part of the Fred. Yes, that is exactly why I want to move away from the Fred as much as possible. I might have to I'm gonna throw the design into the Discord, and you guys are gonna have to come up with like a name for him so that like I have something to match Fred with. Of course, Brandon with his trademark 1964. You know, can't go wrong with a very good design. Ultima's design is good. That's different. Yeah, I mean, the posture's a little different. Spines aren't exactly traditional, but in terms of color, I do like the red veininess on them. And then the having 3 toes with the Duto, it is something that carries over from 98, but like it doesn't compromise the design overall. And then of course I do like my fangs on a Godzilla design, so Ultima having those is nice, and just proportionally is very good. Stan Winston Godzilla is also a favorite design of mine as well. Yeah, I think this, out of like all of the what's it called, all of the changed or canceled Godzilla designs, that's just the one design that will always stick out for me. That and the Godzilla 3D or Godzilla King of the Monsters design that was done a little bit before the Stan Winston design. I also really like that one. Ultima is modern 62 with fangs. In a way, yeah. And 62 is one of my favorite Showa designs, so you know, it's probably not a coincidence that is the case. Actually, let's go through the designs and my thoughts about them, since these are your favorites. 54, obviously I really like. 55 actually has grown on me a lot more. Raids again has started to become like one of my favorite Godzilla designs and favorite Godzilla films. I'm gonna keep on rewatching the film more to talk more about it. 64, an obvious pick. 68, also pretty obvious pick. Marvel. A lot of people will either like really like the Marvel design, or other people will just not love the Marvel design. It's always gonna be super, super dependent on like your thoughts about it. And then 84, love 84, favorite Heisei design. 94, good design too. 2000, of course, was my favorite for a while. Final Wars, a little too skinny for my liking. And then 14, I'm gonna be an Alexander the Swell and be like, I never really liked the feet to it, but everything else was fine. And then of course I think the final design is like one of my things I like a little bit more. 55 design was love. In reference to me like starting to really like Raids again. I don't know, maybe it's just because of the fact that like I've played it a lot in the background and it's become good background noise to me. I've started just to like it more and more. Also got a soft spot for 74. Who doesn't have a soft spot for 74? It's literally Godzilla 74. But let me pull out, I'm pulling it down something for comparison. I'm gonna pull up the camera again. So one thing that I would say that comes to Ultima and a lot of the other designs that I'm sort of I can go either way on, it is just the long tail. I think in Ultima's case, sometimes when I think about it, it just looks a little too long. and then in other cases, I think it's just right. I think if the tail cut off at about here, I'd be fine. Although I'd rather see it kind of cut off about there, which is why I actually very much like the tail length for the Bandai figure. I think is very good. If that was the size of the tail in the show, I'd be completely fine with that. But as it stands, it's something in the design I can go either way on, but I like how it is. My boy is falling. And I will unironically, it may just be a phase for me where I'm just in a really raids again kind of mood. But if it becomes something where I think about it more and more, and I'm like, oh, I really think this film is actually really good, I will probably just have like you and the boys on as like a 4-on-1 debate about it and why it is like the second coming of Christ, maybe. But that is something we will have to wait and see about. Favorite Rodan designs? Huh. Favorite Rodan designs. So I think it's a toss-up between the original and then Monsterverse. Monsterverse has a very good Rodan design. If there's one thing I will say about the other monsters is that outside of Mothra, with both Ghidorah and Rodan, it took America only one try this time to have a good Rodan and Ghidorah design. So yeah, Hasty Rodan is kind of a hit or miss for me. I think I like the portrayal of Hasty Rodan in the Pipeworks games more than the actual design in the movies itself. I think it's also because it's like the color is closer to the regular Hasty Rodan, but the posture is more like Showa Rodan. But it then still has Fire Rodan's powers because it still has the heat beam. But yeah, no, I would probably have to say. And then the singular point Rodans I don't like as much. I think they're just a little like they're very realistic in terms of like their portrayal. I forget the name of the pterosaur the first Rodan is based off of, and then the second Rodan is obviously based on a pteranodon. But I think the SP Rodans are a little bit too lanky. But of course, like that was to make them more realistic. Like if we had like a larger, more as dark looking Rodan, I would like to see what that looks like. And then the Shadow Rodan is essentially the model looks like one for one almost the same as the regular Rodan. So I don't really like have anything positive or negative to really say about it. And then Anguirus it's easy. Singular Point has the best Anguirus. I would really love Singular Point Anguirus, and then 55 is like my favorite afterwards. I swear you have a nice stream. May the Fredlings bite. No, the Fredlings will not get to bite me. That is wrong. Bad Fredlings. Raptor looking ass. Fredlings. I must first go but I feel they play it too safe for them. Yeah, the thing for me is that I'd rather them play safer than do something that just ends up looking like a Fred. And I think that they did a good job of that. If we ever saw another Ghidorah, go a little bit more in the alien direction, but in general, I think that what they did a very decent job and a respectable job of not only making a new design, but a design that is actually different, as it were. But I'd say like the only weird one out of that group is the Mothra design, which the Mothra design I do not like in any way, shape, or form. I just think that one, it's too small, and then like really leggy. So I think that they could have definitely designed the Mothra to be a little better. And I think that's the one design they really just kind of went off, and they were like, oh, it's not it's not your typical Mothra, as it were. But yeah, the Mothra design is kind of meh. Yeah, no, that's like the big issue I have. I don't think I would have wanted a more traditional Mothra design. I just think that if we had gotten a more insect Mothra, that we could have had a Mothra that actually looks like moths more than like wasps and praying mantises and stuff. I wish Ghidorah had manes and a center crest, to be honest. Yes, I actually would have preferred to have seen manes, and I actually always prefer a Ghidorah with like a center crest on the head. It completes the design. And I think the only design that I ever really want to have wants like see a Ghidorah without the manes is the Heisei design. But that may also just be because like I'm probably just biased where I really like that specific design, and I don't really have anything I can say about that like changes that. But no, just definitely mains and crest always make a Ghidorah design a lot better. Basically, Dragon Line Hydra mixture like the original. Yeah, no, exactly. And although I don't think this design does it, but the Shin Ghidorah design, although I think it does actually have a main. I'm gonna look it up right now, and I'm gonna share the screen when I find it. Shin Ghidorah. And then the one issue with the Shin Ghidorah design is the fact that you're always looking at it at like angles where you can't exactly tell what's going on with it. This, yeah, I think it. I just pulled up a picture, so we're gonna do a full share. There we go. Okay. So he has like a main like structure. The only thing is that when it looks more like spines that all like very 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 close spines that become a main. And this isn't really technically the Shin Ghidorah design. That's just artwork that was done with Shin and Ghidorah. But even if these aren't actually like a main, they're just spines that mimic a main. That too, I would be fine with as well. And then this is obviously this isn't the real model itself. This is more a edited. Unless this is the actual model, but I highly doubt that. And then even here, again, it looks like a main, which if it is a main, it elevates the design for me. And if it's not actually a main and it's just spines, then that is something I would not mind at all. But even let's look at the Monsterverse Ghidorah. Monsterverse Ghidorah. You know, a good shot of. Yeah, this will suffice. Although it is a theory thumbnail, or this one actually does better. If they're like it again, Dakota said it perfectly. They went very safe with it, and just to add fuel to that fire, it's Smaug. The Smaug. The Smog. And even then, there's a lot of similarity in sort of these two's heads, in my opinion. Especially because, like, no hair at all, the large crest here at the back. However, the one thing I will say is that with Smog, you are having the crest is a lot smaller, and there is no larger crest up towards the front. But then the one design that ends up getting the most kind of similar to Ghidorah would probably be Drogon, and especially Drogon. The thing that separates Drogon, however, from Ghidorah is that you do have these large collection of smaller spikes here, but you do see the similar larger spines towards the back, but then you have sort of the neck fins here, which break up the design, which Ghidorah does not have, and in a way, he could have served to have them so that his heads don't look as naked. But then if they did that, that he would, again, the comparisons between Drogon and Smaug to Ghidorah would probably be a little bit more on the nose. And just going over to Hissing Ghidorah. In a way, the Monsterverse is like a one-for-one kind of update to Ghidorah in that sense. Yeah, I do wish I had gotten the Shin Ghidorah figure as well. I have not seen one since, and that will always be my shame. That will always be the shame, as I never did get the Ghidorah from that. And for the sake of it, we'll look at Ride Ghidorah too. And the big issue with the Ride Ghidorah is that there's even less good images of this design. So this one's weird because he has similar Monsterverse attributes with the spines here, like that. But then his mouth is kind of more like a beak rather than a more draconic head, which is definitely something that's like a lot more out there in comparison to what you also see with Ghidorahs. And then he also has hands. It's so weird that this Ghidorah has hands. And then we also see this. Let me see if we can get a good shot right here. So right here, the necks are far more serpentine in the sense where they all lead down to this one body frame and then they separate the tail. Well, at the Ghidorah here, you have the heads. Then you have essentially two pectoral muscles and then the arms. So this design definitely looks far more like a man in a suit, but this is completely done in CG, funny enough. So the neck sort of cut off to a point where, like, if a suit actor was in here, his head would probably be in about like this area of the neck. And I would say if they were doing this via suit, they'd probably be a little bit more of a hump here, and then the neck would come out more. But it's interesting that the most suity looking Ghidorah is the one done in CG. Yeah, it's really weird. Well, actually, we can also just watch this too while we wait. I do not care about your Chrome. There is a lot of places like Chrome. But let's just begin. And real quick, before I continue, you guys could hear the audio for that, or could you not hear the audio for that? Actually, I don't think you could, so we have to do it a different way. Yeah, so we're gonna do a streamception here real quick. There we go. So now you should be able to hear the audio now. So I'm bringing down the audio just a tiny bit here. If I ever went to Japan, this is one thing I definitely want to go to because of this whole thing here. And also, since I don't want to like end up getting suitled or get the stream taken down, or what happened to the last one, I'm gonna speed this up. Yeah, so it's like right here, breaks out, and then he just starts running towards you with his arms. So strange. And of course, like, we can talk about this Godzilla design, which looks very bulky up in the chest, and then for some reason he has very small arms. But the weird thing is that the arms don't, the hands don't look as big as they do on the toy, so it kind of throws out the proportions to me. course, this isn't the whole thing, but the other thing is that in this whole ride, and then no one seems to remember, is that you do end up seeing that Rodan does appear in the thing as well. So yeah, as he said, interestingly, Ride Rodan has a more draconic look to him. I don't even think there was a Ride Rodan design or a Ride Rodan figure. Ride Rodan. Yeah, no, there has not been a Ride Rodan figure yet, but let's show off the design. Yeah, this is essentially like one of the better shots you can get of it. It's a weird mixture of, it looks like it has the Monsterverse scaling pattern, but then the head is very different with almost Ghidorah like protrusions on it, because you have this one here and it extends all the way down here, interestingly enough, unlike just sort of the Monsterverse Rodan, which is a little bit more traditional in how it handles things. And although obviously this is just a matte Frank image, you can see it actually better here because you have right here and here. So of course very stylized, but the crest for Monsterverse Rodan arcs up more towards the top while it tapers off with the Ride Rodan, and then of course the horns here being the big one. And also probably say this is probably also an effect of just you're not getting the best images, but it does look like Monsterverse Rodan also has arms that come out of the wings more to a degree, but that could just be an effect of the fact that the design, you can just see them more. Opinion on G versus G Gigan. Oh, that design. Yeah, let's look up that one there. PVG Gigan. Find that one. This is the GVG trailer. This is an art piece. It's not the actual like shot of it itself. Oh, there it is. Okay. Goodies. Share window. Through the window. Okay, so seeing as like Show the Gigan is one of my favorite designs, the thing I like about it is the green is a lot more mechanical or artificial. Artificial would probably be a better word, especially here where you're seeing individual muscles make up the arm here, and then the claws look like they are actually coming out of the arm rather than being sort of attached directly. And then is holding up this section here for the buzzsaw, which is like mostly the only gold you see outside of the tail also, which based on the fact that there's green here, then there's gold, there's a little bit of gold here and here. It very much looks like the blue, almost exoskeleton-y kind of bits are wrapping around the biological gold aspects of Gigan. And then the saw blade, which is no longer like a silver color, it's like a bronze kind of thing here, is interesting. And then also a large departure is the fact that the fins are no longer like a yellow color. So let's just move back. All the wrong Gigans. There we go. So it's always been assumed that all the gold bits of Gigan are the biological points, and then the artificial is all the blue. Or teal or green, whatever. So it seems that in this Gigan's design, the fins are actually artificial with a same almost bronze coppery kind of color here for the membranes, similar to the same color on the buzzsaw. which what that implies, none of us know. But then the head, the neck is very long and it tapers off into the head, which does give him a far more penguin-y looking design, as some people said. Because especially, I think the thing I like more about Showa Gaigen is that with this, the head is a little bit larger. And of course, with larger animals, their heads tend to get smaller in most cases. Like especially with sauropods, you see this. But I do like it when something has a more proportionally sized head. That's like one of the big issues I have with Legendary Godzilla is that he has a very, very tiny head, but then he has a very big body. And with Gigan, the body flails out, so he looks very bottom heavy with a very like long neck and kind of tiny head, if that makes sense. Although the eye being a little bit more of a slit is a feature I do like on this design. Yeah, it could be metallic. It could be an exoskeleton, but it just because of how smooth it is, I don't necessarily think it's just like metal, or at least it could be like a metallic alloy that's a little bit more flexible. But I'm very interested to know whether or not we will actually see a figure of the gemstone Godzilla, I think some people call it, or the GVG Godzilla, because we got it for the ride. So since this is an anniversary thing, and with the other Hedera anniversary, we had gotten the SOH Monster Arts figure, which was like an anniversary one too. But it would be interesting if we'll also get figures for this new Gigan and new Godzilla. Because in terms of this Godzilla design, it's not a bad design overall. I'd say in some ways it looks better than even the ride design, especially I'd say up in the chest area, especially it just kind of flows a lot better. Although I do prefer the ride's legs comparison to this one. And then the spines as well, I think, are better on this design than on this design, which are very much more classic Heisei look. Oh, we get both designs might be announced in November. I was on the news outlet Twitter because essentially it said it was will commemorate the 50th anniversary of Gigan. It will be released in this fall. So that could mean it's either coming September, October, or November. But if we just do some basic research, interestingly enough, Godzilla vs. Gigan originally released in March 12th of 72. So it's not like we could say, oh, it happened on this day. So we don't know, but it will be interesting to see whether it's going to be in October or September. I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be in September, most likely. And then, yeah, it's the same deal where the film was released internationally in March. So it's definitely not going to be a deal where we're getting it on like the day it did come out. Favorite Mechagodzilla design? With Mechagodzilla designs, also because there's different kinds of robotic design that goes into them, it's always a lot harder for me. Same thing with like how it's hard for me to pick up favorite Godzilla design. But probably if you had if you told me to pick, probably I would say Kiryu. And if it included designs that aren't technically official, then the Heisei Mechagodzilla poster design is probably my favorite. Especially because I just like the essentially the gun fingers that are similar to Showa, but then everything is updated and it just has a really good look to it. So I'll pull that up. Heisei Hey, say that good little poster. There we go. $74 hand sound after that Kiryu. Kiryu is a 74 is a really good design. It's just when I think about it, I don't know, it just never speaks to me super strongly. But this design, oh, I love this design. Just I like the use of the fingers is really nice. The kind of essentially taking the original Showa design but bulking up the shoulders. The chest is more defined. There's more color in the sense that you have purple and red and black accenting off the silver. But then also the head isn't as rounded as what we see with the final Heisei design. It's a little bit more angular, closer to the Showa design, and it just still captures that mean look to it. However, of course, since it is like an Earth-made Mechagodzilla, I think they really wanted to cut back on it having a more like devious or aggressive look to it, maybe. But I think with what the design like is as its own, it's just very nice. Of course, this isn't related to that design, but it is. I do like how what this picture does here with them trying to get a fake Godzilla skin onto Mechagodzilla. I've seen that a couple of times. It's always really cool. And then, of course, the Kiryu ripping off all his armor and stuff. And this one. Everyone seems to like never have anything like too nice to say about Heisei Mechagodzilla, but it's interesting because now a lot of the hate that was for the Heisei Mechagodzilla seems to have transitioned onto the MonsterVerse Mechagodzilla, unless someone brings up the anime one, which a lot of people, for some reason, who really like the film, try not to bring up that design is just one weird and then two mishandled in so many ways. Ranking of the designs, best to worst: 74, 75, Kiryu 93, Ready Player One, MonsterVerse, and then that one from the anime trilogy. I wouldn't even include Ready Player One because like it's a mix of the poster design and then kind of doing its own thing. But if I was including that design, that'd probably be like maybe my third favorite. Ironically enough, my third favorite Mechagodzilla isn't even from a Godzilla movie, for that matter. And we got my sugar son, the man, the myth, the legend, the monstrosities, the Matty's Matt. I just want the 74 jazz theme back. I would love to see a like a Mechagodzilla that has like a synth beat to it. Like a really good synth beat to it. That's what Mechagodzilla needs. Just to add some synth to everything. But that is neither here nor there. And right now it is 10:18. And Spawn said he'd get on about 10:30-ish. So it's probably not going to be still got some more time, but what I am going to do is I think we can go into the discussion in and of itself on its own, since like even though Defender is not here to talk about his point, I'll still talk about the point regardless. Hello, it is I. It's the Zim of the Zillas. And let me just remove some of these extra tabs so we can just sort of get into the meat of the discussion. So I'll share that again. There we go. So let's provide context to the pictures. We have 98 and Zilla. Then we have Varan Titanosaurus and Gorsaurus next to Amphibia, Aquatilus or Aquatilus and Terrestrius. And then we have Gabra and Salamanca. And then the Kamungas next to Hedera. And then also, ironically enough, forgotten, but very Megalon inspired and Gigan inspired. But So the point goes, Zilla is no longer a unique case of Toho using a previous design for a new character. This further justifies the fact that Godzilla 98 and Zilla are different characters. Zilla may be based on and represents 98, but that does not make them the same character. So when we say that 98 and Zilla are the same character, what we mean by that is it's taking a character, transplanting them into a new continuity, and using them in a different way. It's the same way as how we have different versions of monsters like King Ghidorah, Mechagodzilla, and Mothra moving from Showa to Heisei Incarnations. Not everything is going to be exactly the same. However, they are fulfilling the same roles of the characters they are coming from. The only difference between Zilla and 98 is primarily the quote-unquote rights issue, where if 98 and Zilla are not legally exactly the same, then therefore they can be separate characters. When in reality, the creation of Zilla was done specifically to use the American design alongside an actual Godzilla. And Tatopoulos has already stated before that he was happy his character was in the movie. So if the designer of 98 sees them as the same, the intent behind the creation of a new like monster trademark was so they could use the character, then for all intents and purposes they are the same. But if you're someone who believes that, well, if the laws don't technically mean that, then I think that it's the argument then boils down to how much of a legalist are you? Then, like, you really like if we're gonna say, oh, I believe the law says this, so therefore it's true, then I hope that you as a person are unironically following the law to the letter in every other encounter you have in your life, because then it's not a matter of actually believing what the law says or the spirit of the law. It's just a matter of getting it own, which in most cases it is for people on the internet. But the thing also falls apart when the fact that you look here, where technically Salunga is not just based on Gabra, it's based on Baragon. So does Salunga even fulfill the same role as Gabra did in Godzilla's Revenge or Baragon in almost any movie he's in? He doesn't really. Same thing for Hedera, the sort of creatures here, or the Kamunga looking like Megalon and Gigans. Does this Kamunga take on traits of other Toho kaiju? Are they fulfilling the role that Gigan and Megalon would play? Not really. Same thing for the first three forms. They aren't fulfilling the roles of Varan, Titanosaurus, and Gorosaurus to any significant degree where you could say, oh, if these weren't gods, if this wasn't like a Godzilla form, you would just call this Gorosaurus, when in reality this is very much a Godzilla designed with Gorosaurus inspiration. Same thing where this is a little bit more departed from Godzilla. It's very more Titanosaurus influence, but it's still again a Godzilla ad Astra. While, however, with 98, you're having both characters, both mutated reptiles that are then loose on a city. And if we're saying, well, Zilla has M base, 98 doesn't, well, every other version of Anguirus doesn't have N base, so that's not really significant of a point. Well, it's not exactly the same design, and the same would go for most Godzilla designs aren't exactly the same across the board, so therefore we can't really then say, oh, because it's not, these aren't one for one, they aren't the same. And then even more damning is the fact that we know that a Ultimate 98 figure is what was used as the base model for Zilla when they scanned it. So for all, like, quite literally all intents and purposes, they are the same monster. And this is a good litmus test for people is if you look at Captain Marvel and then you look at Shazam, it's the same character. There's no getting around the fact that these are the same character. However, someone could then say, no, Captain Marvel has a strap right here around his cape. It's a half cape, and Shazam doesn't. It connects directly to these tassels here. His lightning bolt is also different, and then he has the belt here that's different from how it's shaped here, and these are spandex. Well, this is clearly like a bodysuit. And then, of course, his name is Shazam. Well, this is Captain Marvel, so they're totally the same character. A good litmus test for people is that if you ask them, are these two different characters, and they say no, but then if you ask them if 98 and Zilla are, and they say yes, then it's not a matter of actual argumentation. It's a matter of being bad faith about it. I actually mentioned this aside from skin texture and color. Salonga looks something like Gabra. His body is even like Gabra's. I feel like he's more original than most people give him credit for. Oh, no, definitely. Salonga is a very original design. It's just a lot of the SP monsters all take influence from other monsters. And therefore, at that point, like this idea of them being influenced by other monsters is being stretched to the point here with Salonga and Baragon and Gabra. And moving down further to my point. So I'm not sure if anyone remembers everything from Justice League Unlimited, but there was Deathray from Justice League Unlimited. And of course, we have Black Manta. Now, when you look at these guys, they don't all look exactly the same. However, the reason why Deathray was even created for Justice League Unlimited was because a different company had the rights to the Aquaman characters, except, of course, Aquaman themselves, because, of course, Aquaman appeared in Justice League Unlimited. And because they weren't able to really make a true Black Manta, they then created essentially a Black Manta in name only, which became Deathray. And of course, like a lot of characters, Deathray would go on to become his own character, similar to how Arkham Knight has become his own character in later DC material now. So like instead of just being a alias of Jason Todd. So unlike with Zilla in 98, where the intent behind creating the Zilla character trademark in the first place was essentially to have that design carry alongside real Godzillas, Deathray was a Black Manta that they then decided, oh, we now have a technically separate character. Let's make it its own thing. And funny enough, the voice actor behind Deathray Unlimited is the same actor who plays Black Manta's father in the live action Aquaman movie. So that's a fun fact you can tell your mom as well. And then the same goes for the fact that Deathstroke and Slade from Teen Titans are also the same character. Like this character is called Slade. This character is called Deathstroke. Deathstroke's name is Slade Wilson. And we could say that these are two different characters, but then when one of them has the same face mask thing, and his name is quite literally the first name of the character he's based on, it goes without saying. And then I think an example of characters that are similar, and one was designed as essentially being another character, but are very, very different, is the fact with Watchmen. We had, before Alan Moore created Rorschach, he wanted to use a few sort of no-name DC characters, and the original inspiration for Rorschach, or who was going to be Rorschach in the story, was going to be the Question. And when Alan Moore was told he couldn't use actual DC characters, he decided to make his own, and that's how we would later get the character of Rorschach. So, in this case, although Rorschach is an influence of the Question, he is not like supposed to actually be the Question transported into a different continuity. Rorschach and Question are two very, very different characters. And then, of course, we can also comment on the fact that if the argument is appearances aren't exactly one for one, well, it can't be a actual Godzilla 98. This can't be really a 98. That's not Godzilla 98. And neither is this. Although these are all images, if you look up Godzilla 98, that you will find. So if the argument is, well, the characters aren't exactly the same, so that also kind of falls in on itself as not really being true. But then also, we can look right here. As Matt had said when it came to Totopoulos' views on it, and I'll just read the bottom part here. Since Toho owns the character and likeness of the American Godzilla, they wouldn't have to ask for Patrick Totopoulos' permission, but I can understand where that might have seemed impolite. In any case, Patrick's a big Toho fan, and he seemed thrilled that his character is now part of the Toho Godzilla history. I hope he can come to the world premiere at the Chinese theater and see the movie on the big screen, because I'd love to see his reaction to the two Godzillas fighting each other. And again, they're essentially saying, oh, well, it's two Godzillas, but then one of them actually isn't Godzilla. But it's Totopoulos' design, but it is the likeness and character. So essentially it is weaving creatively between legal lines to explain something that is actually true. No. Interesting request, but no, sorry. That's not something I do. And that is an interesting request, though. And then, of course, another thing we need to move on to is the fact that this is something taken from Matt Frank's Tumblr. It's when someone asks, so if Rule of Earth continue, would Zilla have developed her, it should be he, own set of powers, or would she have had an offspring who developed powers like in Godzilla series? His response, we probably would have found a way to introduce the baby Zillas, maybe the power breath. We couldn't use the animated version and have those rights. So there's a little bit of difference between animated rights and then the Totopoulos rights, which is interesting. I probably need to go through the legal document between Toho and Sony about how that panned out, but it'd be something probably another GFS I could ask him about that. And then of course we have Dean Devlin saying he's screwed up with Godzilla, and him quite literally saying goes on to discuss his idea of reimagining Godzilla as a giant lizard who wasn't good or evil but was simply trying to survive. That's an interesting idea, but that's not Godzilla, said Devlin. And the other point I make is the fact that like he couldn't. There's no way a man with a net worth of $15 million could be like influenced or bullied to the point where he felt he had to step in regarding that. Oh, this is interesting. Hyrule Goji 98 says, do you think Godzilla should use the universal stock roar one day? King Kong and Gamera used it already. Why Godzilla not, or why not Godzilla? I think you mean. I would say definitely. I think the only reason why Gamera had to use a stock roar was because I think there was a rights issue regarding them being unable to use the roar. And because of that, that's why they couldn't use the normal Gamera roar. Then with Kong has never had an iconic roar. Of course, he's had the 62 roar, but that was from a Toho property, not like the original American sort of understanding of the character had that roar. So I would say even the Toho roar is more iconic than any other roar Kong has been given. So Kong can kind of have whatever roar he wants. It's going to depend more on his design. So if they want to make him more like a actual gorilla, then like monster, then having him sound more gorilla makes sense. And if he's more monstrous, having him use a stock roar makes more sense. But with Godzilla, you are very much having to be beholden to using a variation of the roars he has. So I don't think he'd ever use the universal stock roar. It just doesn't seem like it fit the character. I just got a message from Spawn, and he says he will be in about 10 minutes. And Defender is still a no-show on that. But in the meantime, since he said he is just 10 more minutes until then, just a few. If you just want to throw a few more questions my way, I'd definitely be down to answer a few of those before he jumps in. Or if a number of you want to just come on the stream and sort of just give your thoughts, I'd be also down to receive those as well. Let me also just check to make sure I did not miss anything from other people. Nope. No, we should be good. Okay, no, we're good here. And let me also bring this back onto the screen. And sort of going further with the point, and this is directly responding to Kaiji's point, where it says, I would argue the same thing can be said about of any Godzilla incarnation, different shapes, proportions, features, and attributes, except the fact that like these weren't like Godzilla, Son of Godzilla in comparison to 2000, that wasn't made to then be like, hey, let's take the Son of Godzilla, have him be near or against the 2000 Godzilla as its own monster, or the 2000 Godzilla against Ultima as its own monster. Unlike with 98, where the intention literally was always to have them just be incarnations in their own continuity. And whenever these Godzillas are taken out of their continuity, it always ends up just being Godzilla. Unlike with Zilla, where we do see it has been removed out of its continuity as a new monster. Which King Kong is your favorite? 33. That's an easy one. Just the original King Kong. It just has that wonderful pulpy goodness that I enjoy when it comes to excuse me, the like that time period. And I really like not just Kong, but the dinosaur designs from that era too. So I would totally love to see like a extension of that Skull Island, which we do with Son of Kong, which is the only Kong besides the Dilo de Laurentiis one to ever get like a direct sequel to his universe, and just it being a film about like another Kong, where you could say with Skull Island GVK is technically a sequel to that, but like it's not really something like I would ever see like happening with for example the King Kong Escapes Kong. I mean, it could happen, but unlikely. I do like the idea of Mechani-Kong. Really is I'd say that when it between the 62 and the 67, the head I think on the 67 is better than the 62. However, I think proportionally the 62 suit is overall much better. But yeah, no. It's always something interesting to think about when it comes to monsters being moved across continuities, because you'll have the idea where essentially Zilla is the one and only case of a design being changed to be a completely different monster, and then having to then face off against the creature it technically originally was, or we'd never see that happen again in another movie. Like even with monsters, we think that could be the case. Like for example, we've obviously there's multiple Mechagodzillas. We've never seen two different Mechagodzillas fight. We've had two Rodans, but in that case, it would even like it's two separately trademarked Rodans. That is just a male and a female Rodan. Same thing with Mothra twins, where it's not like Mothra larvae have their own trademarks in that aspect. And then with Baby Godzilla, like the Baby Zillas are also. It's really weird because, especially with the Baby Godzillas, because I'll go back to the screen for this one here. Let me stop sharing that, and let me bring up the camera again. How does this work? Yeah, that's actually... yeah, so of course you see the typical Godzilla trademark here, but then you also see the Baby Godzilla trademark that's used. And then you've also seen different ones that have been used that are showing the 98 design and then the Baby 98 design. And when it comes to like having the Baby Zillas under the Baby Godzilla trademark is just interesting to say the least, because of course Minya and Baby Godzilla have their own trademarks, and I think that having the Baby Zillas, especially under the Baby Godzilla trademark, dilutes the point of that character, especially probably even more so than the just 98 being under the Godzilla trademark how it is. Which show monster do you want to see make a reappearance in the near future? Varen. That's an easy one. I would love to see Varen return. Interesting monster, and I think that finally actually having the damn thing appear in a movie instead of being considered and then ultimately scrapped would help kind of dismiss the reputation of it being like a no-show, but then also like people actually being like, oh wow, the design's really cool. What would it actually do in like a movie outside of the one it actually got? And then if there's another monster that I would like to see come back, I wouldn't mind seeing, although not a monster, Showa Mogera come back. Showa Mogera is interesting because then that leads way to seeing the Mysterians return. And I think that like a lot of the Mysterian tech influenced what we'd see with later sort of sci-fi equipment in the Showa films, like War of the Gargantuas, Invasion of Astro Monster, and stuff like that. Hetero the Gargantuas. The Gargantuas are definitely I would love to see the Gargantuas return. Having more mammalian monsters is always a good thing. Definitely Varen seriously needs to come back. That goes without saying, without a doubt. But right now, how many more minutes are we? Actually, it has been 10 minutes. Spawn, you lied to me. And then still, Defender has not re-answered. How would you reinterpret the Mysterians if you got the chance to? The thing about the Toho, like all of the Toho aliens in general, is the fact that although they all have different motivations and the like, they're almost all conquering aliens. So I think if we saw the Mysterians almost in a way lead into like the fact that they have the same colors as Starfleet from Star Trek, where they are less of just a invading group of aliens and more like a federation that wants to incorporate Earth and is almost always like a looming threat in the galaxy rather than sort of this one-off thing that we'll never see again, but like an alien group that could also ally with Earth if need be. That's how I would reinterpret the Mysterians. And considering the fact that like also the repopulation was a big point for them, that is the one excuse that you could have of an alien species actually looking like humans. Do you think the next Monsterverse movie will be a Godzilla or a Kong movie? Well, I think Origins is now the working title for the new movie, and then we've seen like essentially not test footage, but like footage where people are running away from a beach, and we don't know if that is them reacting to Godzilla. It's being filmed in Australia, but it's serving as Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, so we don't know if it could be Behemoth. Probably not Kong, because of course Kong is down in the Hollow Earth unless he popped out of a Hollow Earth tunnel in the ocean. So there is that. And looky, there's someone else in the stream here with us. It is the Atomic Spawn. Say hello, good sir.
Hello. Good to be here.
It's good to have you on finally. I think I tried it. How many times have I tried to get you on before? Like I think like twice or like at least 3 times though. But it's finally good to have you on board. So essentially we've gone through all the points already, but in your opinion, when it comes to the like I can bring up the Defender points again. Hopefully he can actually join. He said he'd be on like at least like an hour ago. But let me get this back up. There we go. And I'll just read out the tweet again. So essentially, his point is Zilla is no longer a unique case of Toho using a previous design for a new character, and this further justifies the fact that Godzilla 98 and Zilla are different characters. Zilla may be based on and represents 98, but that does not make them the same characters. And specifically, he's using examples from Singular Point where other monsters were influenced and designed by Showa Kaiju. So what would be your opinion on this? Do you think that point holds up, or do you have a counterpoint, or do you think that you have like a different take entirely?
Let's see. Well, I think that I think he does kind of have a point when he's talking about Godzilla 98 being a separate character from Zilla, but with the examples he's using for Singular Point, those kaiju seem pretty distinct to me from the kaiju that they're taking inspiration from. So I think it's enough that they're their own thing rather than, because with G98 and Zilla, it's pretty much the same kaiju in terms of appearance and such. So.
Mm-hmm. And then not to mention that quite literally the director said that they were using the American Godzilla. So it's like even more of a case in comparison to just using other monsters as a base for your inspiration. But what would you say, like when it comes to your point on it, what do you think distinguishes 98 and Zilla from being like different characters? What do you mean by that rhetorically?
Besides the looks and stuff.
Yeah, besides the looks, because I'd say that's the most superficial element of it.
I mean, it really just comes down to, I guess, the legality of them having like the right to use the name Godzilla and such. But other than that, really not too much difference. I know. Have you seen Kaiju Zilla's post? He's done
Yeah,
a recent like comparison
I mean,
between
we could, yeah.
G98 and Zilla.
We can definitely go into the point too, because I know it's like right down here.
Yeah, that's the same one.
That's the same one. Yeah, we can go. I can go through one by one and dissect the points. So, since people get them mixed up, Godzilla 98 is an incarnation of Godzilla, the first being a 1988 film, and blah 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 blah. Even much to this day, cast of Flora, Godzilla is a kaiju based on the 98 Godzilla vs. Godzilla Final Wars, with later a 98 comic, Godzilla anime trilogy, prequel novels. Take one figure around the time Final Wars release and appeared in the game Godzilla Kaiju Collection. While Zilla may be based on Godzilla 98, they have more differences than just name. So showing height, scale pattern, placements, essentially physical details, and then character, which I would say character is probably the worst example to bring up, because considering how different incarnations of kaiju act differently, then we can't really say that different incarnations of kaiju are the same kaiju by that logic. But then also we're going over origins, where I would also say another issue is with origins, you could have different monsters appear with different origins and still be legally the same monster. I'm gonna ask this. I don't think I've ever asked you this question before specifically, but how much do you know about DC Comics?
Pretty much nothing.
Nothing. Okay. Do you know the character Shazam?
Heard of him before.
Mm-hmm. Do you know that do you know that his name was originally Captain Marvel?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so I'm gonna move over to mine for the sake of this point. So essentially, back when Captain Marvel was created, the character was never called Shazam. Shazam was just the acronym of all the character or famous people that the Captain Marvel took his powers from, and then he became Captain Marvel. And it wasn't until later on, when Marvel had a dispute with DC over the use of the name, which said was interfering on their copyright, which there's no like actual way to get the legal documents for that specifically, but because of that, they had to change the name of Captain Marvel ultimately to Shazam. And essentially, instead of him having the name Captain Marvel, he just now takes on the name of the acronym he used to say back before then. But in all intents and purposes, they are the exact same character. Even though DC originally did not create Shazam, they bought the licenses to the character and then had to change the name based on a legal dispute. Would you say that Shazam and Captain Marvel are the same character, even though they are technically legally distinct?
From what I could tell, pretty much they look basically the same to
But
me.
they are
Do,
legally more distinct than 98 and Zilla would be, because in the case of Zilla 98, Toho owned the likeness of the American Godzilla, and in the case of DC, they owned the character of Shazam. However, they then lost the rights to then label this character Captain Marvel, even though they own the rights to everything else.
hmm.
Because so like as essentially the point I'm making is that although technically Shazam and Captain Marvel are legally distinct characters, they are in more ways similar and almost identical than um 98 and Zilla, but they are considered the same character regardless of that legal precedent. So my point would be that if we're arguing based on legality isn't exactly the best to go for. And another example, also DC related to, let me pull it up. Did you ever watch Teen Titans as a kid?
Yes, I did. Love that
Okay.
show.
Yeah, so in the case of, it's not, there it is. So, of course, Slade was the main antagonist of Teen Titans, and he was based off of Slade Wilson or Deathstroke from the original Teen Titans comic books. However, technically they are distinct characters because of the fact that one, they look different, and then one, his name is Slade while the other is called Deathstroke, even though Deathstroke's actual name in the comics is Slade. Would you say that those two are different characters or the same character?
Well, I guess it would probably be a different character.
Even though the character calling himself Slade is essentially the, in all intents and purposes, the same character using the name of the other character's first name.
So Slade from Teen Titans is taking this other character's name,
Well, no,
and
so Deathstroke's real name is Slade Wilson, while Slade in Teen Titans is never called Deathstroke. He's just called Slade. We never know whether or not Slade is actually his real name or if it's an alias. But in terms of what the character does functionally in the story and his origins and the like, they are the same character, just different names and different appearances. So my question would then be: are they different characters or are they essentially the same character?
or I think I understand a little bit better when you put it that way. They sound pretty much almost the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and the other thing is that with both Shazam and Captain Marvel and Deathstroke and Slade, fans of these characters don't really have an issue with them being called something different because, in all intents and purposes, it is the same character. However, when it comes to 90 and Zilla, why do you think there is a resistance to essentially the character being called Zilla rather than Godzilla? Even though technically it would be correct to do so.
Uh, let's see. Personally, I wouldn't really have a problem with people, dropping the name Zilla when referring to the '98 film. Of course, I'm a little bit biased, me
Mm-hmm.
and a few others. Uh, the movie's called Godzilla. They call it Godzilla in the movie. So we just, just for the sake of it, it's a Godzilla to us. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I don't have any problems with people referring to it as Zilla.
Yeah, so it has more to do with just a bias rather than like an actual need to be objective, to use a term.
Essentially, yes.
Mm-hmm. And I would also say that considering the fact that like we've never seen um the 98 Godzilla ever appear again as like labeled as the 98 Godzilla and like further continuity things or like as part of a ensemble of Godzillas. Are you as a fan of the movie fine with essentially Zilla like carrying on 98 as a like character, or do you feel that like if there are multiple Godzillas there needs to be a Godzilla 98 represented there rather than a Zilla?
I would be fine either way, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I know Zilla's made an appearance in the Rulers of Earth comic,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been in the Godzilla anime trilogy prequel novels and
Yeah.
such. So, if we get to see more of Zilla as, that
Mm-hmm.
with that name, and, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
I'd
essentially
honestly like to
like
see,
the hypothetical is like canonically we never see a Godzilla 98 again for like canon material or new continuities. It's just a Zilla. So like you'd be fine with that.
yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that essentially it's better if merchandise is called Godzilla 98, or would you just be fine with it being Zilla, even if like it's not directly being made in conjunction with like referencing the 98 film, like if you just got more like Bandai's of the monster design?
Yeah, I would be totally fine with Zilla. You know, I think for me, it's not really the name, but more the creature design that I'm, really into and
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of. So, as long as we get to see more of it, I'm
Mm-hmm.
totally cool,
So essentially like the name really doesn't matter to you, it's just the creature design.
basically.
Mm-hmm. And that just kind of leads me to an interesting other sort of topic idea, and it's the fact that if like for example if the creature was never called Godzilla and wasn't even called Zilla to begin with, if it was just like another monster movie that was there, are you of the opinion that it would have done better or would have done worse, or nothing would have really changed?
Um, I'm not really sure how that would have played out. I'm not exactly sure what the state of Godzilla's popularity was before that. I'm assuming not as much as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
So, marketing it with the name Godzilla, I think would definitely have attracted some more people. Just knowing that it's a character that they know from pop culture, and
Mm-hmm.
instead of being an original kaiju film. But
So essentially like you don't believe that the design itself could have carried the movie?
um, possibly not.
You do say possibly. What under like if you were to guess a circumstance, which what circumstance do you think would be possible for it to have been able to carry the movie?
Um, I'm not exactly sure. I know the reception to the film itself was negative in the context of it being a Godzilla film, but I've heard
Mhm.
people say that, they're fine with it being a regular, original monster flick, but not really sure how to put it exactly.
Mhm. And I don't think I've ever asked you this like outside of Twitter. I don't think I've even asked on Twitter. With your connection to the film, is it just sort of like a nostalgia thing for you primarily, or is it like I watched the film later on and it just became something I very much enjoyed as a film?
Oh, the nostalgia definitely plays into it a lot. It was pretty much my first exposure to Godzilla or giant monsters in general. And I was probably about 4 years old when I first saw it, and I was just amazed at like this big dinosaur creature, running around the streets of New York, and it just kind of captured my imagination then, and it's important to me that way. Of course, I've when I've seen later films, I like more Godzilla films, and seeing how the character was portrayed before and since, uh, I could definitely see why people had such a negative reception to the film itself, and uh, the way that they portrayed the creature. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, I didn't. I still like the movie on occasion. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely agree that there could have been a lot more uh, stuff that they could have delved into. They touched on topics of like nuclear pollution and stuff like that, kind of harking back to Godzilla 54 in a sense, but it never ever really dwelled on those points, and it just kept going forward with essentially the summer blockbuster parts of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. Are you also someone who likes the TV show more, or are you actually like a person who prefers the film to the show? Because there are interestingly enough fans who do prefer the movie to the show.
If I would say, just based on like uh the characters and uh what Godzilla does, I would say the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially with the characters, I think they had a lot more of a entertaining like dynamics and interesting, little storylines that they explore throughout the series and stuff. And I end up liking the characters in the series a lot more than I ever do in the film
Mm-hmm.
itself.
Actually, that's interesting. Would you between like obviously the ones we do see that carried over to any significant degree from the films would have been Nick, Audrey, Elsie, Craven, and Hicks. Between like those five, which characters do you think like you prefer more in the animated series, or which ones do you prefer more in the show, or do you think just across the board the show is just superior in every way when it comes to how those characters were portrayed?
Like in the movie with characters like Hicks, Elsie, and Craven, we don't really get to see so much of them throughout the film like we do Nick and Audrey, because they're the main focus.
Mm-hmm.
But so definitely them for the series. But Nick, I guess it would just be across the board.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you like Nick more in the show because like as a character he's just more commanding, or do you think it's just because the situations he's in you just like more?
Definitely the commanding, because he's part of, like, he's the team lead for Heat whenever they're doing all this kind of stuff. And so I think that really lends itself to interesting dynamics between him and the other members. Um, but also with Godzilla, because Godzilla, the baby Godzilla, imprinted on him at the beginning of the series, and he just has a connection to the monster. Like in the film, they try to, you know, that close moment whenever Godzilla comes out of the sewers and Godzilla kind of him.
Oh, one
They're
sec, I
trying to.
think you're just breaking up kind of badly. Just
Am I?
say something real quick. I just want to see if it's stabilized.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yep, nope, you're good. You continue.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, I live out in the middle of nowhere. The internet's kind of spotty.
It's no problem.
Uh, but like I was saying, especially between Nick and Godzilla in the series, there's a lot more interesting things going on there, because uh, at first he has to defend Godzilla from the military because they just want to outright kill him and stuff. But with these new mutations cropping up, he wants a monster to be fighting on our side. And I think there's just a little bit more going on there than they were trying to imply in the film. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's another thing I really wish that they got into with Godzilla in the film is because, you know, should we kill it? Should we spare it? I don't think it's really explored well in the film.
Hmm.
And it tries to have its moment at the end when Godzilla's dying on the Brooklyn bridge, but it doesn't really make you think about it too much, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, do you think it's like wrong specifically to kill this specific incarnation of Godzilla since it's portrayed as more of an animal, or do you think that sort of ethically and logically it makes more sense that he should die?
Well, I think the stakes of basically a global takeover of this new Godzilla species, you know, and it's never really questioned, because Godzilla's so big and he's disrupting, New York City so much. It's kind of obvious that man and him can't coexist together in the world. And if Godzilla's population steadily goes up and exceeds our own, then I would say that it probably was the best choice to go ahead and kill him.
Yeah, especially like considering the fact that like we can also say that since Godzilla is just an animal, there's less of an ethical dilemma of like putting down an animal that that is a problem to humanity versus something that's a little bit more like intelligent, like a more classical Godzilla in that sense, especially because of the fact that like really all it is doing is um doing what it's doing to survive rather than like a direct threat.
Yeah, and something I just thought of now also is because, people have problems of, you know, killing off bees and such because they play a vital role in pollination and, you know, the natural order of things. And it
Mm.
just came up, the question came up to me is what would have Godzilla's role in the world, like what would that have been? Like, did it stabilize the ecosystem or was it kind of just out of control?
Well, I think that we can think about this too because when we look at the film, the Godzilla, whenever it is looking for food, it's not choosing to really like go after schools of fish. It's attacking ships, um, rather than that. We only ever see him fish on its own with the baby Godzilla in the series. And then when it comes to him making landfall, it's just sort of choosing a nest where it wants to nest rather than um, kind of thinking about what would best protect itself and its offspring while also collecting resources. And then finally, we also see with the juveniles where they are not only able to eat fish, but they're also very adept at killing people. And if a Godzilla is nesting inside of a large city, that's directly just going to be a major problem for just any person living in that city. If a animal of that size just ends up nesting there, or if any of them move out of the area. So
Yeah.
I would say like just primarily that it's like there's less moral. I think there's overall, from what I can see, less moral quandary about putting down a problem animal than something that's directly like lashing out because of misdeeds done to it with like the first Godzilla.
Yeah. It also reminds me, have you seen the movie Them?
The Ant movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of reminded me of that because the ants, they'll build a nest in one place, and then you'll have the queen ant hatch, and then they'll move on to make a nest somewhere else. And that's really the main point, like really the main conflict of the movies is trying to stop them from essentially taking over the earth, much like Godzilla would have done in '98. So
Mm-hmm. And what's also interesting is the fact that unlike with at least with the first Godzilla, where after it does indeed end up attacking Japan, it's just kind of chilling on the ocean. While with '98, because of its size and its power, and the fact that it's just an animal, meaning it like has no concept of like ethics or right or wrong, it's just gonna keep on attacking ships for food, and its young are gonna kill indiscriminately, regardless of like people. So very much like it needs to be stopped primarily because of the threat it poses and not just like of how destructive it is.
basically, yes.
And another thing that's interesting, I assume you've probably looked at the script for the canceled second movie, correct?
The one where he goes to Australia, fights
Yeah, when
the
he goes to
giant beast.
Australia.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard about that. I don't think I've read it directly, but I've seen videos and stuff about it.
Okay, because I was gonna ask between the show or a second movie or like essentially a trilogy, would you prefer a trilogy or are you happy we got the show instead?
I'm pretty content with the series itself. It's probably some of my favorite in all of like Godzilla media.
Mm-hmm.
But I still would have liked to see where they could have taken some of the concepts from '98 if they would have elaborated on them more or tried to play into like the conflict of man's pollution of nature and all these creatures cropping up and what responsibility we have to stop and prevent those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
But
You have the book, right?
the novelization, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know you said that Defender had gotten a lot of his things from you telling him about the book. So I assume you just have a copy of the book yourself too, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I've been reading it, like obviously, like I've said on a stream, and it definitely goes into more detail. Do you think that the like the extra detail it adds is like it helps flesh it out more, or do you think a lot of it ends up kind of being superficial?
I would say this adds more kind of to the creature itself, like some of the uh I guess kind of explanations for design choices, or like I said about why there's so much rain in the film, just
Mhm.
it adds little explanations to things that are in the film or why the film is the way it is. But uh beyond that, it's whatever.
Hmm. Like, you don't think that probably if they had followed the book a little closer, we would have had a more impactful film? Or do you think sort of it is what it is and sort of what we see in the book really wouldn't have changed that?
I think a few minor details would have helped, especially whenever Nick is kind of talking about, or even having like the flashback of like after the bomb blast, and he sees like the fallout on the islands, and it's killing everything, and there's like the nest of eggs and stuff, and he
Yeah,
knows
the daydream he has, yeah.
the radiation is pretty much killing the animal inside and stuff, and he feels sorry for it.
Hmm.
I think stuff like that could have helped a little bit, but
Hmm.
it is what it is.
Do you think that that like do you think Nick is a better character in the book or in the movie in terms of like not just like his actions but like sort of sympathy wise?
Honestly, it's been a little while since I read the book, so I'm not gonna remember exactly how Nick was in it, but I guess I
Mhm.
would just have to default with the movie.
Okay, no, that's fair. That's fair. But what's it called? It looks like we are coming in about an hour 45. Overall, is there any quick closing thoughts you'd want to give, or essentially you've kind of said what you've wanted to say in general?
No, I think we covered everything basically.
Okay, no, that's good then. Um what about, is there anything you would want for me to like, do you would want to plug for the audience at all, or are you all set on that front?
I don't really have anything going on, so I'm good.
Okay. And I think I'll do the same in that respect, because I always feel weird like plugging stuff when guests don't plug. But I want to thank everyone for joining us overall. It sucks that for some reason Defender wasn't able to join the stream, even though he said he was able to come before even Spawn said he could come on. But probably I just have to catch him for a different stream. It is what it is. But thank you, Atomic Spawn, for coming on, and thank you, the listeners, for staying as long as you have. This is Zimzilla99, and I will see you guys all next time. Have a good one, all.